Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Here it is Thursday, the 5th day of May, 2022, and today's topic is part of our SWIFT, reimagining what the impacts from hurricanes are all about. SWIFT, storm surge, wind, today IF, inland flooding. Tomorrow we will discuss tornadoes, but today is inland flooding. So real quick for you, pop quiz: when tropical storms and hurricanes make landfall, and this is kind of true or false, their impacts stop at the coast. Well, come on, that's false. Everything keeps going for hundreds of miles sometimes. The remnant circulation, even the wind field, takes a while to degrade, but it is the inland flooding, freshwater flooding from rainfall. We're not talking storm surge here. Inland flooding from too much rainfall. Put it this way. People say, well, I wonder if I'm in a flood zone. Everybody in the lower 48, everybody that lives on ground is in a flood zone if it rains long enough and hard enough. And I know that sounds very obvious, and I don't want to sound comedic at all, because it is absolutely true. There are areas here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I live, that are not necessarily in a standardized flood zone, but Florence in 2018 brought so much rain that neighborhoods just filled up with water. The same thing is true in areas of Texas after Harvey, for example. You don't have to be next to a stream, creek, or river in a 100 or a 500-year flood plain. All the impervious surfaces that we have, these malls, these neighborhoods, these cookie-cutter neighborhoods, cul-de-sacs everywhere, concrete, blacktop, you name it, the water runs off these retention and detention ponds. I never understood the difference between the two, but they overflow, and you can get flooding if it rains enough. And that flooding is not covered under homeowners insurance. Most of you know that. If you own homes and you're listening to this, you know this already. Renters, same kind of thing. You need to make sure, especially if you're close to the ground elevation there, that you have additional flood insurance, because that water coming up from ground level, inland flooding from too much rainfall, it doesn't have to be a river that overflowed its banks and there's a big flood coming from the river. It can just be from too much rainfall, for example, like we saw after Florence in the Carolinas in 2018. Now this map right here really, I think, defines the problem. Look at all of the tracks here that go beyond the coastline. I'm going to outline a good chunk of the lower 48 here, and then look at everything that's inland from there. It'd be neat if I could just erase all the stuff out over the water. That would have been a cool effect, but we'll do it this way. So just kind of reverse it. Look at all these tracks, and this is when these were still viable, trackable entities. The moisture envelopes, from all of these events can keep going, even if it's not a trackable tropical depression or a tropical storm or what have you. The remnant moisture can make it far inland, and that is certainly the case even in the desert southwest over here. And you need only to zoom in to different regions of this map. For example, here in the east, look at all of those tracks that crisscross Texas, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Georgia, everywhere. All of these dying tropical systems. We think over history, Camille and the Appalachians creating huge flooding concerns. Gaston back in 2004, Richmond, Virginia. You guys remember Gaston, made landfall in South Carolina, and the moisture got up there and caused a huge flood event in the Richmond area. Faye in 2008, meandering all around down here, making several landfalls, but in Melbourne and that area, you guys remember Faye, 2008. I can go on and on. We got Harvey, we have Melda, and Allison in parts of Texas there. The no-named tropical low in 2016 that just kind of moved across the I-10 corridor here, flooding areas in Louisiana and Mississippi. Just a terrible situation from too much rainfall. Rain is needed, but rain can also be the enemy if there's too much of it, even in a short amount of time. Some of the rainfall rates, by the way, during Harvey were 6, 7, and 8, maybe 9 inches per hour. We see the legendary Jim Cantore get excited about thunder snow when it's snowing 3, 4, 5 inches an hour in a heavy lake effect band or one of those big nor'easters, and you see him flicking the snow in the air and he gets all excited. Nobody is ever outside when it's raining 6 to 9 inches an hour, talking about the heavy thunderstorm that's bringing that intense rainfall, because it brings a lot more problems than does your 3, 4, 5, 6 inch per hour snowfall rates. Rain, we need it. We need the fresh water. Lord knows we need it out west, but it can be problematic. So drawing attention to it here, making sure you're aware, these don't stop. These tropical cyclones don't stop when they make landfall. Weather Prediction Center is who issues the different risk analyses for our rainfall events. And it's very similar to severe weather. You have your marginal, your slight, your moderate, your high risk. Very similar to the severe weather. It really is. This is very recent here. I didn't pull up one from a tropical cyclone. Maybe I should have, but I'm just really wanting to point you in the direction of where to find the info. And it is the WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, and they are on Twitter, of course, so follow along here. Easy to find. National Weather Service, Weather Prediction Center. There you go. They are up in College Park, Maryland. I have a couple of good friends that work there, and they issue the discussions for our heavy rainfall events, among other things. There's also different river forecast centers, but social media is a great stopping point here. Twitter for the WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, and of course the National Hurricane Center will mention the threat of rainfall in their key messages going forward. All right, so anytime you see a tropical cyclone approaching, you bet that that'll get mentioned in the rainfall section. Hazards affecting land, that'll be there. Basically, the rule of thumb: the slower the storm movement or the hurricane movement, the more rainfall you'll get. When they move fast, you have less amounts of rain, and I think that just makes good intuitive sense. So what does it look like? Just to kind of remind you here, going back to our folder, our archive folder, first of all, you get a lot of flooding on rivers, and those are measured with river gauges all along, thousands of them around the country. This is back during Sally in 2020, and this is the, I believe this is the Fish River. If I'm not mistaken, if it's not the Fish River, then it is the Perdido River. But this was the forecast. It was going to break the record there. It looked like about 27 feet. And these are your different moderate to high and major flood stages. The record is indicated here. All of this stuff will get tweeted out. It will. It'll be very readily available. But that's what we're talking about here when we get these big flood events. They happen along rivers, streams, creeks, you name it. And if they have flood gauges on them, then we can get a forecast, and people need to be ready for that. What does some of this flooding look like? Well, this is from Florence in 2018, just up the road from where I live in Pender County. This is Highway 421. This is drone video. You can see the road washed out. This is not storm surge. This is days, plural, days later. This is Highway 421, a major corridor. Any stream, any creek, any river that gets that much rainfall, we were talking in excess 18, 20, 24 inches of rain, and that can be the result. It also happens in the desert Southwest. I don't want to ignore this at all. This is from Norbert in 2014, a flash flood in Utah. Yes, Utah, tropical cyclone moisture can make it up into Tucson, Phoenix, Vegas, Southern California, Southwest Utah, New Mexico. Kind of gets pulled around part of the monsoon high that's out there, getting involved with what happens in the desert Southwest. Here's a great example. This is Hurricane Rosa and its remnants not far. This is way out in rural Maricopa County, not far from Phoenix. And this is also 2018. We put the drone up. You can see these washes, these dry washes, come to life, and they can cut communities in half. People try to drive across these, and you get a lot of problems there from moving water and your vehicle. Here's an example of that here. Again, Florence, this gentleman, not so fortunate. His truck was lost. The person who owned that truck did not drown, thank goodness, but it was very harrowing. Just forget it. Don't cross that flooded roadway, because look, this could happen to you. This is inland flooding from tropical cyclones. This was Florence, again, in 2018. And look at the vastness of it. Yes, it is a very, very, I think, misunderstood, least respected of the hazards. overall, people think, yep, once they hit the coast and I'm not in the storm surge zone, I am going to be okay. And a lot of times that is incorrect. And again, going back to this map, I believe that's pretty much all you need to know. Look at the reach of that, all the way up even to the upper Midwest here. You can just imagine, the over the past, going back to 1850, and farther back in time than that even, that this is a problem. So take it seriously. Get the flood insurance if you can. I know there's a lot of expensive things out there these days, but you got to have separate flood insurance, not just for storm surge, but for the freshwater flooding from tropical cyclones. And the other thing about it, going back to that drone video there, driving your vehicle through flood water is 100% a preventable loss and tragedy that we see over and over. Floyd in 1999, Matthew in 2016, Florence in 2018, numerous people in North Carolina, the unnamed, sort of indirectly related to Hurricane Joaquin flood in 2015 in South Carolina, Columbia, parts of upstate South Carolina down to Charleston. People drowning, getting swept away in their vehicles. We saw that during Harvey. Folks, this is the one area right here. It's like, come on. We have to have a big fat zero for that. It's all, there's no reason to drive through flood water to take that risk. It's not worth it. You say, well, I know the area. And there's times that we have done it in our work. But again, we've done this for 25 to 30 years. We know what to look for. People that are in a hurry, they may be stressed. They may not know what to look for. They don't know when to stop. All right. So this is sort of, do as I say, not as I do. Yes, we have driven through some flood water in our days, but then we can take that educational experience. And there's been plenty of times when maybe even us driving through it, we thought maybe we shouldn't be doing this, and we got lucky. I want you to stay lucky all the time and just avoid it if at all possible. In almost every case, unless it is a life-saving emergency measure, you're evacuating from one terrible peril and you got to go through that flood water to get away from it. Okay, but other than that, especially if you've got kids, and I will say this, we've never done it with a bunch of kids in the car. Usually it's in the name of work, trying to get from point A to point B, and we know what to look for, and we've never done it in moving swift water. That's a big fat zero. Not happening, not going to do it, as they say. So be safe out there. Understand your risks. Tropical cyclone, inland flooding, part of the overall package of what tropical storms and hurricanes, even depressions, can bring when they make landfall and beyond. All right? Don't forget, we are on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, supported through Patreon at patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. Share this video. Let people know what we're doing. Post it on your social media. That's fine. That's what these are for. And this is not 100% comprehensive, covering everything, but just raising awareness to this impact of inland flooding. Definitely one of the hazards from hurricanes and tropical storms. Even these weaker, lesser, hyped-up storms can create a lot of problems. And so it's up to you. It's up to you to be educated and to be aware and know that, yes, this is one of the main hazards that can cause a lot of problems for you if you don't respect it and understand it. All right? All right, tomorrow we'll go over tornadoes. That's a tough one. I've never seen a tornado within a tropical cyclone, but we're going to talk about it, some of the mechanics that produce inland tornadoes. They can be very terrifying and short-fused. Yeah, absolutely. They can happen very quickly, and we'll discuss that on tomorrow's T, the letter T of Swift. We'll do that tomorrow afternoon. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving me a listen. I appreciate it. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Tomorrow, we'll talk about tornadoes.